So a while back, I made a video on Mallsoft, one of the many subgenres underneath the umbrella home we call Vaporwave that, at its surface level, is supposed to replicate the overall atmosphere and feelings of being in a grand, larger-than-life shopping mall. But when you look deeper at that subgenre and the intentions of the artists who produce music within it, a critiquing of our seemingly dystopian economic circle of life, where big corporations flood our hyper-consumeristic minds with things to buy that we don't even really need, which eventually gets disposed as outdated, only for the cycle to already have begun again, provides the skeleton for the subgenre to become more than just music, but an expression of erroneous themes in human society. And I love Mallsoft for that. It's shiny, glistening, and reverb-heavy sounds flooding your minds with over-romanticized memories on the surface level, only to hold a way more critical and concrete meaning beneath the wax floors of the Palm Mall, makes me only more and more curious to dive deeper into the subgenre. Not all Mallsoft musicians making the tunes are going into it with that deep of intentions, I'm sure, but I think we can all feel the distractingly angelic sounds of Mallsoft blanketing over a bigger issue. Well, today I want to talk to you about a subgenre that also aims at critiquing consumerism, however presents itself in quite the opposite way. Instead of showing off beautiful, airy megascapes with synth sounds, effects, and filters like Mallsoft does, Signalwave, also known as broken transmission, is a subgenre in the Vaporwave universe that gets right to the point, attacking your ears with a wide variety of past, present, and future commercial loops, sound bites, and clips, creating this overload of channel surfing data. The subgenre is by far one of the most experimental paths you can venture through in Vaporwave, as artists don't really worry or care about creating something catchy or in time or anything like that. To them, there are really no forbidden boundaries to worry about crossing. Signalwave artists crash together loads of advertising clips, radio samples, and television dialogue, just to name a few of the things they play around with, to create these musical collages of sound, giving them the opportunity to create moods and themes by placing together, let's say, optimistic samples with more disturbing ones, a truly bizarre frontier that can evoke some wild feelings as a listener, and not to mention the memories of sitting on your couch watching some TV back in the day. Who would have ever thought commercial breaks could be so damn interesting? And if you're a fan for all things odd about our interest for corporate consumerism culture, Signalwave or broken transmission is definitely the subgenre for you. But if you never heard of it, no problem, baby, because today I'm going to talk to you about 5 albums that do a great job at representing the subgenre. I'm here to give you a proper introduction to the channel surfing wonderland waiting for you in the depths of the internet. Let's start off with this beast we got right over here, Dream Sequence by Nimesh. Not only is this one of the most well-known pieces to dive into that, or at least contains aspects of the broken transmission sound, but it's also pretty much regarded as one of the most dynamic Vaporwave albums of all time. Legendary Vaporwave producer Nimesh cooks up a lengthy listen at 18 tracks that travel through a spectrum of wild emotion, with no care for where you'll end up at the end of it all. Along the way, you'll find breathtaking moments of clarity and wanderlust on this album, sprouting out of thin air, as tracks like Keep This and Favorite Places, for example, contain stretched out synth chords and nature soundscapes to keep you afloat from the chaos that peaks out during the rest of the album. And while a lot of Vaporwave includes hypnotizing synths and melodies, you know me, I talk about it all the time, it's the sporadic moments on this wild-natured album that kind of makes you appreciate those spa-like sounds that much more. Looking at the album in regards to a Signalwave piece, it's definitely pretty heavy on the calming instrumentation side, as it's more than just a conflagration of commercial clips bouncing off of one another. But the power of this album comes from that concept right there, its twists and turns. Just when you think you're starting to get comfy and homey around these ambient moments, Nimesh will strip away those peaceful occurrences and suddenly force feed you highly texturized cuts and chops of channel surfing jaggedness. Using this unconventional tool for musical composition, Dream Sequence keeps you constantly on your toes, as tracks like Más Abajo and La Madriguera del Conejo, that was pretty damn good, come at you with roaring static. Unsure of what channel to turn to next, the vocal sample Headache that explodes during the latter part of the track The Gull Wing Doors of Perception is another example where Nimesh subverts the tranquil side of the album into a ever-falling nightmare of sound. And then there are these tracks that are just so unsure with what they want to be, trying to climb out of the glitch like Just a Simple Thing, where pretty piano keys and charming little jingles are trying to stay afloat above more crushing, nightmarish samples. I also love when Nimesh just ends measures or tracks out of nowhere, leaving you stranded with nothing but the void you inevitably created for yourself by deciding to listen to this thing. Be responsible when listening to Dream Sequence, my friends, at your own risk most definitely, as the warm and inviting world Nimesh constantly tries regaining your trust in has absolutely no problem flipping on its side, leaving you disoriented, unsure if you even wanted to be here in the first place. What Interstellar or Inception is as theatrical pieces is what Dream Sequence is as a musical piece. Beautiful landscapes that can shift and bend when you least expect it. Now for a more concrete and textbook Signalwave experience, let us take a look at Circulation by Asutenki, an album that'll warp you back in time to late 90s, early 2000s Japan, watching a broken CRTV glitch through its scheduled programming. On Circulation, we really get no breaks or alteration in a mood or sound style, as we are constantly fed a true channel surfing experience. Each of these 15 tracks that make up the album contain a heavy variety of samples within them, from beer commercials to classic Toshiki Karamatsu samples. Some of these samples only lasting mere seconds, accompanied by that fuzzy, static VHS sound that, oddly enough, provides the only frame of reference to the dimension of the rest of the audio that is completely stripped of any lows on the frequency scale. One thing that the Signalwave subgenre does for you is that it constantly keeps you on edge, as getting too comfortable within the grooves of a sound loop can prove to be worthless, as it can change into a completely different tempo and feeling in the snap of a finger. And on Circulation, we get that almost all the time, as pieces are cut short and warped right into a commercial or dialogue piece with no warning or transitional build-up. Breaking down this album, though, can only go so far, as it really is just a plain and simple introduction to Signalwave. It is a fun museum of Japanese commercials glazed with nostalgic filters to really drive the whole project home. And as with all Vaporwave, the artwork's low-quality resolution really adds to that tasty early 2000s CRTV goodness. Fujigrid TVEX by New Dreams Ltd is just another art piece of an album that follows this similar path as Circulation, but it also does add a little more variety to the showcasing of Japanese TV commercials reborn in this modern age of music. Here, we get a little more action with some awkward stutter chops, pitch shifting, and abrupt changes along its 12-track course. Originally released as Prism Genesis all the way back in 2011, the EP was re-released as Fujigrid TVEX later on in 2016, touching up on some of the original textures the EP had, as well as adding some new, warm tones to sections of the album. Originally coming out all the way back in 2011, many consider this, and with good reason, to be the original Signalwave, Broken Transmission, Transmission Wave, I don't know, there's so many damn names for this subgenre, album. New Dreams Ltd is one of the many identities of Vectroid, who many of you may know as one of the OGs of the Vaporwave genre in general. So seeing Ramona dip her toes into just another subgenre is definitely exciting, further chiseling her as a true pioneer of the genre as a whole. She does bring some instances of traditional classic Vaporwave production on Fujigrid TVEX, with some reverb-heavy, echoing drums that pounce on tracks like Virtual Big Turtle, I love that name, actually providing some groove and structure to the album at points, which you don't really see a lot in other Signalwave albums that kind of just stay true to the let's blast you with a bunch of commercial clips all at once landscape. But most of the time, though, it still does revert back to that showcasing ethic, flooding your eardrums with compressed audio bits, bringing you back to a time oh so long ago. When comparing it to Prism Genesis, FujiGrid TV-EX has 5 less tracks, but is almost 10 minutes longer, really adding some meat to the original work and making the just over 30-minute commercial binging experience a true treat to those who like some experimental weirdness in their musical diet. An underrated Vaporwave release in general that I'd really love to show to you today that fits perfectly in this Signalwave arsenal is Telenights by Ghosting, released back in 2015. Originally on the classic Dream catalog and eventually on the label Adhesive Sounds, here we get a flashback of 80s and 90s American life, media, and culture with a shockwave of tunes, commercials, and glitchy noises portraying the quintessential couch potato in bliss. Similar to Circulation, there really isn't one track that I can point out in particular, as each track really is the same thing. Ghosting really didn't even need to separate the tracks here, as it all is one constant vision. Short in length, but exciting in nature, Telenights' mishmashing of channel surfing really genuinely feels like some late night television, and with an album cover that portrays a scene at night, the album really does feel lonely and beyond conventional listening hours. The mastering and mixing on each track radiates a living room that everyone else has fallen asleep in except me. And you know for a fact, I'm too lazy to grab that remote. Well, I wish I did, and I wish I turned off the television, because I don't know how to explain this. One moment I was watching Family Matters, and then before you know it, I was sucked into the family television in front of me. But I'ma chill in this television world for a little bit, because I kinda like it here. So I only want to touch up on this album really quick, as I've already made an entire video specifically surrounding this album already, but we cannot talk about Broken Transmission without mentioning the notorious classic New Deluxe Life Liberated from the World. A moniker of Internet Club, this mind-numbing experience was released on New Year's Day back in 2012, making it another grandfather of the Signalwave sound along with Prism Genesis. There are people who love this thing, and there are people who straight up avoid it. But whatever your feeling is for it, this nuclear active music bomb is undoubtedly a pinnacle of how far one can take the Vaporwave genre. Are we just drawn to the shock value and presentation of Vaporwave? I don't know the answer, but I do know you should at least listen to this thing once. It's a trip and a half. The upfront display of consumeristic cliches replicated through visual and audio advertising chops is such an interesting and ironic concept in itself that I find I just can't turn away from it. And because it's pretty easy to make, if you follow the textbook rules of what Signalwave is, a lot of artists can and have partaken in creating a massive amount of releases with this style of glitchy sample manipulation. I highly recommend getting lost in the world of Signalwave music, and hopefully this handful of albums right here introduces you to the bizarre world this subgenre presents us with. A huge thank you to my Discord for recommending me albums to check out in this corner of internet music. Y'all know me, I really don't listen to this heavy of experimentation, so it was great getting some picks from you guys on what to check out. There was also an album I listened to for the first time when looking through some of the albums my Discord recommended me, and I decided I want to make an entire video for that album in itself. It really hit me hard, so expect that video coming out very soon. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite experimental albums or musical projects are. It doesn't even have to be Vaporwave related. I'm always down to check out some new sounds and get lost down another musical rabbit hole. Until next time, much love, your boy, Pad Chennington.